Well, hello, friends. This is David Vos, and I hope you guys are having a great day. I am really having a good day. I am at day one of the rest of my life. Man, it looks bright. I've got no encumbrance. I'm free. I got so many plans and so many things I want to do. I'm confident. I'm looking forward to so many beautiful things. And all of the things that can bring you down, I got a I I got an idea. Hey, I got a tip for you guys. Anything that's bringing you down, let it go. I know that sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? And well, there's some things that we have in our lives that we feel like we just can't get rid of. Like, oh man, this car payment is getting me down. But I can't get rid of it because then I wouldn't have a car. All right. But perhaps you don't need to pay $40,000 for that car. Maybe you've already paid off $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, but you don't need necessarily. I mean, count the cost. Is that car worth another $40,000? Which means you're going to work 8 hours a day, perhaps an entire year of your life to pay off that car. And then by the time you get that thing paid off, because it's not going to be just a year will go by, but you might pay on that car for 10 years. And by the time you're done paying for it, maybe it won't even run very well anymore. Maybe it'll be scratched up and the radio won't work anymore, and then you won't want it, of course. But, is it worth it? You only got so much life. Count the cost and see what is really bringing you down. Your house payment. You say, well, I really like this house. Why? Well, it's such a nice house, and when people see this, they're going to say, wow, look at this beautiful house this guy has. He must be happy. Well, it's weird how you look at something and you really want it. But what is it that wants that house? What is it that wants that car? What is it that wants this and that? That may be the same part of you that wants that pizza, but then you realize that you eat that pizza and you get fat. And if you don't eat the pizza, even though it's a temporary pleasure, but if you resist it, you end up being healthy, attractive. That makes you feel better about yourself. Nobody wants somebody who is sick. We have an aversion to unhealthiness. What is beauty? Beauty is healthy. Young, youth, and healthiness. Well, youth is healthiness, normally. So you want to be healthy, and you want to be free. You want to jump that fence and run down the field and like a gazelle. You want to have that energy and that strength, but you can't do it if you eat that pizza every day. That bag of candy, all those chips. So, yeah, you might want that house, but not a lot of people have ever said to you, a lot of people saying, don't eat the pizza because you'll get sick. So you're aware of that one. But how many people, like when you turn the television on, how many commercials have you seen lately that say, hey, don't even get that credit card. Don't get that car and that house. That's basically going to enslave you practically the rest of your life. And if you can get through it, I don't know how many years you're going to be paying this off. By the time you get through that, then maybe that's when you retire, and then you're going to have a great time. But of course, you've been eating all that pizza, so you're going to be sick and in the hospital. So you're probably not going to get to go and do anything. But, the commercial's not going to say, don't buy this house, don't buy this product. It's not worth it. Be free. No, they're going to have pictures of people running through the daisies and big smiles and puppy dog tails and, oh, wow, it's going to be butterflies and singing birds and sunshine on your shoulders and all of this. And they're going to be advertising some kind of drug. I heard a thing the other day that said that probably, I think it was 70% of the commercials now are advertising pharmaceutical drugs. also in the news right now is this information that's finally getting out. I don't know why all of a sudden we're hearing about this, but you probably heard about Oxycontin some years ago, and everybody was getting addicted to it. Well, it turns out that addiction to the Oxycontin was leading them to a much more powerful addiction, to heroin. And it created an epidemic in this country. And lots of people literally died from this. And it turns out that this one very rich elite family was pushing the pharmaceuticals and telling the doctors to push it on their patients, whether or not it was good for them. It was against all of the stats that said this is going to make people more healthy, this is going to be better for them. They just lied to the public because they were making a lot of money and they were making people addicted to it. They were drug pushers. So, all right, we know that. We know this is happening. Follow me. Because what I want to do today is I want to get to a point. It's weird how it's difficult to get to a point in our lives where we're really not confused anymore. We don't have any more confusion. We know exactly who we are, exactly what we want. Because it's like, to start with, we don't even know if we should eat that pizza. You know, everybody's saying, hey, a little pizza is not going to hurt you. Come on, don't be a party pooper. Have some pizza. Drink a beer. Right? Do a little snort of heroin here. That's all right once in a while. And so we're not sure because somebody else is saying, hey, you know, marijuana is good for you. So you don't know for sure because nobody's telling you all the information. They're not explaining to you. They're not explaining to you the difference between a chemical, a man-made pharmaceutical, and an herb. So you don't know enough about why you shouldn't do that and why you could do that. And so it's very confusing. And if our entire society is based on commercialism and the elite begging us day and night to take their products which are killing us, then that can be a big problem. So right there, just in this little area, we're just talking now about pizza and some pharmaceutical drugs. It's difficult to weed your way through that. Now, if you have navigated through that and they're pretty healthy and they kind of have a good diet and they're on track with that. But we've got other things going on in our lives. You know, you still got your house payment. Everybody's saying you got to have a house. What are you going to do if you don't have a house? See, well, you can't live out there in the woods. You can't build your own cabin. Well, that would be ridiculous. So, all right, so we've got that going. And I've talked a lot about that kind of thing in some other videos that I think we need to downsize. We talk about a lot about health and what to do about how we can be healthy. And oh, buddy, friends, I learned some interesting things, some powerful, amazing stuff that I want to do some videos about. And I'll just give you a little hint. Vitamin D3, K2, broccoli sprouts, molasses, cod liver oil. These are some things that I want to talk about in an upcoming video. But anyway, once we get this information and we find a way to make ourselves healthy physically, and then we find perhaps a way to downsize all of this expense of living so that we're really more free, more carefree. We're not worried about all of these things going down. We're not worried so much about working ourselves to the bone trying to keep up with the Joneses. So there's a whole nuance there to get your life in order. And of course, there could be 1,000 other things we could talk about. You know, your temperament, getting your thoughts in order, getting your emotions in order. Some people are literally living in bitterness and hatefulness, and they don't have any friends, and we could talk about that, or 1,000 different things. But I want to get down to the very crux, the very nitty-gritty. I want to pinpoint exactly what it is that we can do to be happy, to be alive. And I think it goes back to one basic thing. In fact, there's a scripture that talks about people that were in fear of death all their lives. And I know a lot of you will say, oh, I'm not afraid to die. But, I don't think that's quite the point. I know some people think that they're not afraid to die. But that could go different ways. I mean, some of you may be saying that because you're tired of this life. You're beaten, right? You're conquered. It's got you. You just can't hang on no more. You want to depart this existence. And so, okay, is that a good thing? Not necessarily, because I don't think we need to be beaten. I think we're looking at this world completely in error. Just like we didn't understand at first when we're children that too much candy can make us sick. Just like we didn't understand, we got deceived by the pharmaceutical companies, just like we got deceived by our religion. Yes, we can be deceived. And we can be deceived by our own emotions. We might think that everybody hates us. Maybe our parents abused us as children, and we never got over that. And we were insecure all of our lives, and we couldn't get a handle on it. And it just basically ruined all of our relationships. So this is a huge thing. I mean, trying to navigate all of this and make your life better. For some people, it's a lot worse than others. But we're all good and decent people. Many of us have been abused in one way, some have been abused in another, but I guarantee that we've all been abused and deceived. Because the God of this world is blinding the minds of the unbelievers. But what is it that we don't believe? This has been glossed over. This has been the big confusion. We think as Christians, Lutherans or Baptists or Presbyterians or something, we just think it's all about, they don't believe in Jesus. See, that's their problem. They just don't believe in the guy named Jesus. And if they just say that name and go get baptized in the river and take the wafer, they'd be fine. Well, friends, that's not true. There's lots of people that have taken the wafer, got baptized in the River Jordan, and attend church regularly, and yet they're not happy. They're not fulfilled. They're missing something. There's lots of people out here that are following the guru from India that says, hey, sit in the corner and light candles and say and read this book. Go down to the store and purchase this $20 book and read it from cover to cover. And, you're going to be on a new path of life and everything's going to be great. Well, it gives you hope for a while. And you buy some crystals and hang them around your neck and you think, wow, this is going to be great. I mean, because it's an entire new perspective on life. You begin to realize that maybe all your problems are just an illusion. And so you start thinking, wow, maybe this is a good idea, and you get some hope. And that can help for quite a while. And you start believing in this thing. Christians do the same thing. They for the first time, somebody says, hey, Jesus can heal you of anything. And you start believing that because you need so desperately to be healed. So you hang on to that. And in spite of the fact that you still have cancer, you're still believing. And you're still hoping. And you go to church every week and you're saying, holy, holy, holy. And you got your hands in the air and you're singing and everything. And it's genuine. You're doing all you can. But here's the thing. We're misunderstanding so much, even at that level. I mean, we could talk about that or the health or, the cars or the finances, or we could talk about all of it. Religion. But I want to get back to a more basic thing. And let me start with this. To me, the only way we can ever figure it all out is to start at the beginning. It's kind of like when you're going to build a house. There is no way on this earth you can build a house from the roof down. You got to start from the foundation up. And usually when you have a home, especially if it's going to be a strong, heavy, big home, you're going to have a good foundation. So you're going to find out where you're at, whether it's going to be a flood zone, whether or not there's a stable soil there. Does it get runoff? Is it going to be a swamp? Is it on a cliff that could come falling down at any moment? And you build from there up. The Bible talks about this. You can't build your house upon sand. So our world, our life, our thinking, our thoughts, our happiness, and everything we are is built from the time that we're born. We have to build our lives based on what we believe. Because everything you do is based on what you believe. So we're born into the world and we're told, okay, it's cold outside, you better get some clothes. Now, when you get some clothes, they cost money. So you got to go look at Daddy goes to work every day. So you're going to have to go to school. From the time you're just, 6, 7 years old, you're going to be in school. And you're going to go through high school, and then you're going to go to college, and then you've got to have a good career. So this is one of the main things that we're taught from the time we're little. But that's only if you live in this society that we live in. Because let's say that you were a Native American. Well, they didn't have colleges. They didn't have grammar school or kindergarten. They weren't, well, why? Why did they not learn math? Why didn't they go out and learn algebra? Well, they didn't need it. It is not as necessary as we've been brainwashed to think. If you live a normal life, the way the universe actually is designed, and you're born into the world, and what do you got to do? Work on computers? No, there were no computers. We didn't need them. See, you don't need the car unless you need to get to work. And you don't need to get to work unless you have this big fancy luxury house and the condo and the boat and all. And it's just one lie upon another. And we're slaves. But the Aborigine, he's born out in the bush. And the only thing he's got to do in life is wake up in the morning and beautiful sun's going to come down on his forehead and he's going to enjoy it. And he's going to run out. There's no worries. He's not worrying about got to get to work on time. He's not worried about losing the car or the house because you don't have the payments. And he's not worried about food either. Even though you might think, he'd probably be scared out of his mind. What's he going to eat? There's nothing in the refrigerator. Well, guess what? There wasn't no refrigerator. Because you see, just like the coyote and the lion and the rabbit and the bear and the elk and all of the other animals in this world, as long as nature's going along pretty good, and human beings haven't come in there and destroyed the entire environment, they're living in peace. They know what to do by instinct. They're not worried. That elk doesn't have high blood pressure. He's not scared out of his mind. He don't need a counselor. He's doing what he wants to do. That lion is out there and doing what lions do. And humans, they're born into the world and they do what humans do. Until, for some crazy reason, a few thousands of years ago, some individuals landed on this planet and decided to tell us they were God and we had to worship them. And we need to build this big building called a temple and worship them. Well, it's going to take a lot of work to build that big old temple, right? And we don't need that temple except that these gods decided we're going to have to build it. So, of course, we're going to have to live in this one city and build our entire lives around going up to this temple 3 times a year and twice on Sundays, bowing down and serving and feeding these gods. Now we don't just need to feed ourselves, we got to feed these gods. And they needed gold, so we had to go and work in the mines. And this was called worship. Well, originally that word just meant workers. They were slaves. That's what the entire Old Testament's about. I am God, you are my servant, saith the Lord. You will obey me. This is my garden. It's my garden, not yours. And I want you to till the soil, Adam. You're going to be in agriculture, and you're going to be a slave unto the earth. By the sweat of your brow, you'll toil the soil until you die, buddy. And your wife, she's going to be at your beck and call. And I want her to wear a veil so you can't see her face because nobody's going to look at her body. This is going to be a sacred thing now. We're going to have these children and we're going to breed you guys and they're all going to be slaves. So this is what happened. The city-state. Go back in history and find out what's really going on. The human beings were out, we call them cavemen. They were happy. They didn't have this thing called religion. And they didn't live in city-states or governments. You see, government isn't designed to help human beings. It's designed to get humans organized so they can serve the gods. And that's all this is. And this is why we're in this stupid boat that we're living in here. And so the other lie is that Jesus came to the world because we were not doing it right. All of us were sinners. We had disobeyed God, and we didn't go to church correctly. And we didn't work hard enough. So he had to come and die for us. So now you got to work even harder. Boy, don't you ever make a mistake, because you'll burn in hell. This is not what Jesus came to tell us. He didn't come to tell us, you know what, my Father's pretty angry at you guys. So I'm going to make it good as long as you obey me. And from now on, we're going to forgive you. But from now on, you obey me. And then we're going to get there. Maybe, if you're good. That's not what he said. What he came to say is, you know what, you religious people are hypocrites. And what you've been telling everybody is a lie. And your Father, he's a liar. He's a devil. He's been deceiving you, buddy, and he's a murderer. And he's accusing you. And not only just accusing me, but he's a slanderer. Because what he's saying about you is not true. You guys are amazing. See that prostitute? You say she's bad. Why? Because she broke your law? You know what? Come here, prostitute. You're not bad. I don't condemn you. I love you. Do not murder that woman. That is wrong. Oh, you got to keep a Sabbath? Well, me and my disciples are going to go out in the field and pick grain on the Sabbath and eat it, just as an example to you, because you see, my Father keeps on working until now. Your God, he made this law up because he said, 6 days you are my servants. You're going to be a slave, and I'm going to let you have 1 day of rest. Jesus says, you know what? I don't even recognize your Father. He's a murderer, and I'm not going to be your slave. I'm not going to be your slave, so I don't need to rest on 1 day because I'm the Lord. My Father is light. He is love. He doesn't condemn you. You have one that condemns you, that is Moses, but my Father does not condemn you. What kind of a God? You ask for bread and he'd give you serpents like your God did there in the desert, and you all died in the wilderness. Right? He doesn't have any compassion on people. He got mad when they wanted water. But Jesus says, I have compassion on the people. They were hungry. I fed them. Come, my yoke is light. I'm going to give you eternal life. See, not only did the serpent in the garden say, you're not going to die. You'll become like God. But he also said, that God's a liar. I'm going to give you eternal life. I'm going to guide you into the tree of life. Jesus came to give us the tree of life. Well, who could he be? Well, if you go back and you look at the Sumerian tablets, you'll find out that there was a serpent in the garden. His name was Ning-Sida. Yes, he became known as Thoth to the Egyptians, Hermes to the Greeks. But this particular deity was known as the serpent who guided the way to the tree of life. In every religion, on all the mythologies and all the stories of ancient religions. Now, if you go back to the Sumerian tablets, which is what the Bible was based on, you'll find out who that serpent was. He was called the serpent in the garden, who was the serpent of the good tree. Because there was two trees, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. And so Jesus came with the good tree and he gave us eternal life. So, what then is this all about? I go through it that way to get you on track so that you're not scared to think, well, maybe I'm going to be teaching you something that's not in the Bible. No, I'm going to teach you something that's in your Bible, but you've misunderstood it. You've misunderstood the Bible, just like you've misunderstood the pharmaceutical companies. They're not your friend. Government, that's not your friend. And they lied to you. You don't need that big old temple. If you don't need that big old temple, then you don't need to work. You don't need to be his slave because you're free. Because Jesus came to set the servants free. And if the Son of Man sets you free, you're free indeed. It is by grace that you're saved, not that of yourselves. Nobody can earn it. It's free, gratis. Thank you. Mercy. It's done. You have the gift of life that you cannot earn because it was simply something that our Father in heaven, out of his great and amazing love, gave to all the world when he created it. He put his Spirit within you from the very beginning, and you don't need another person to teach you, because Jesus said, don't call any man your teacher, your master, your father, your reverend, your bishop, your king. Jesus wouldn't even allow them to call him king or anything. He said, you are my friends. You're my brothers. And he was the firstborn among many brethren. And as did his brothers, he took of flesh and blood, and he suffered, and he learned by the things in which he suffered. And he was showing us the way to the Father, who is love. He revealed the Father of love, who is above, and not this Father who is beneath. So, I tell you this because I want you to know that from the very beginning of time, this isn't just something that I just came up with this week. This is something that's been plaguing human beings ever since the beginning. So if you say, well then, if you're saying you can live forever, why hasn't somebody ever lived forever? Because this is this stupid deception, this devil who's deceiving the whole world, this dragon with 7 heads and this monster, he's been deceiving the whole world from the beginning. He's the original serpent. You see that means the first serpent. The Bible's very, very clear on stuff like that. There's the first resurrection and there's the second resurrection. There's the first death and the second death. It's kind of a riddle, because whoever has part in the first resurrection, the second death hath no authority. Well, if you don't know what the symbols mean, it's very confusing. The first resurrection is the spiritual resurrection. And if you're spiritually alive, then the second death, which is the physical death, have no more authority. So the first death is spiritual. The second death is physical. Adam and Eve died spiritually, and then they died physically. Now the second death, which is physical, goes away when you have the first resurrection. So it's very clear when the Bible uses the word first. Jesus is the firstborn. That means there's going to be others who are going to be born as his brothers. And here we have the original serpent, the first serpent. Well, that must mean that there are other serpents. Well, if you go back into the original mythologies, into the original stories, where this is all taken from, the Sumerian and the Babylonian tablets, they tell you that Ea Enki was only one of several serpents. There was his mother, who was the great Tiamat, and there was Ea Enki. There were 2 other serpents, Dumuzi and Ingsida. And Ingsida was not the son of Ea Enki. He was the son of Enlil, the sky god, the god of heaven. But Dumuzi was the son of Ea Enki. So there were 2 serpents, and one was the flesh and one was the spirit. And so they were brothers, Jacob and Esau, Cain and Abel. So they're the 2 serpents that wind up that tree where your spine, you have these spiritual energies and physical energies. And so it was the first serpent that was the great deceiver, and that is chaos, Tiamat. And that serpent ended up creating all the governments, the chaotic bestial. The beast that comes out of the sea mirrors the dragon from heaven with the 7 heads and the 10 horns. And this is all talked about in the Sumerian tablets. So the first serpent is the deceiver. Ingsida was another serpent who told the truth, and this is the serpent of the good tree in the story, or the tree of life. Jesus is the one who gave us the tree of life. All the way through the Old Testament, it talks about this dragon. Well, that particular dragon that is supposedly conquered to create the universe, he split Rahab the dragon. See, that's Tiamat in the Sumerian tablets. He split her in half to create the universe. That was before. That was the first serpent. That was even before the Garden of Eden was there. And so then you've got the 2 seraphim that is around God's throne, and each one has 6 wings. There's 2 seraphim. That word is serap, or serpent. There are 2 serpents, and they have wings, and that's the Dumuzi and the Ingsida that the Sumerian tablets also talk about, who guard the way to the tree of life, or to that place where Anu in the garden, or to that place in the center or in the middle of the garden, which is your holiest place of all, which is heaven, which is the kingdom of our Father in heaven, where Anu and Enlil were, and they had granted Adam and Eve eternal life. but it was Ea Inki, or Yahweh, that denied Adam immortality and deceived Adam and said, don't partake of the tree of life. But it was Niningsita, the serpent of the good tree, who offered them the tree of life and took them into paradise to receive the tree of life. And even though Jesus came and said, hey, accept the free gift of eternal life, it's funny because nobody would do it. Not in the days of the Apostle Paul or Peter. You know, they tried to get a few people to come and follow. Jesus said, come and follow me. My burden is light. Come on. The foxes have dens, the birds have nests, but the Son of Man hath nowhere to lay his head. We don't need to worry about what to put on or what to wear like the nations do. We don't need to go to church every week, you hypocrites. Right? You go and search the whole world to find one proselyte, and you make him twofold the child of hell. Because you're destroying them, you're lying to them, you're trying to make yourself out to be better than they are because you keep some law. Right? This Pharisee who kept all the laws from his birth. He said, don't you know that this woman is washing your feet? She's a sinner. And Jesus said, you know what? Since I came into this house, you haven't done anything for me. You haven't washed my feet. But this poor woman, she came in here and she washed my feet because she loves me. You don't love me like her. Right? You think you're so much better than her because what? You kept some law? Some arbitrary, but where's your love? What's the point of this law you have? If it doesn't, make us better people. All it does is make you a hypocrite because you think you're better than her. Guess what? You're not. The first shall be last and the last shall be first. Now, you know what, Pharisee? Stop, you hypocrite. Stop it. Because this whole religious charade is just that. It's a charade. It's deception. You're deceived. Wake up. You see, friends, look. It's more than just your religion is deceiving you. But you have to understand that religion is not even what it was originally. I was talking about this with my daughter because she's going to college and she's taking some philosophical teachings and she's studying Eastern religions and stuff. And I was trying to explain to her that even her teacher does not really even understand the ancient wisdom that was in the Bhagavad Gita. And he's trying to explain it, but he doesn't understand it. Because he was asking his students to explain what is religion. And what is religion? Oh, well, it's the opium of the people, I said. It's a snare and a racket. Well, her teacher didn't think that was a very good answer because he was thinking that religion was what we have today. This little club with these little rituals and this little do's and don'ts and this church building or this cathedral and there's these monks and this is a religion. And that's not what religion is. That's what we say today. But that's not what the ancient scriptures are talking about because for instance, in Judaism, religion didn't exist. It was a nation. And that temple, which we think is somehow as religious, it was the priest, the high priest, and the king. They worked together, and it was a civil law. The Ten Commandments aren't just some religion. They was the civil law. And the temple was the entire national way to keep everybody controlled. It was a thing where rank, you had the king and the emperor and the priest and then the peasant. And then even below that, you had these people that were slaves. And the only thing that kept them slaves or the king, a king, is the law. The law said you will be a slave. The law said you will eat this and you won't eat that. The law said that if you do this, you're a bad person. Is that moral? No, there was no moral laws. Get over this thing, it's moral. If it was moral, Jesus would have stoned that woman because certainly Jesus would not have gone against the morality of what is right. Jesus wouldn't have said, oh, well, it's okay, you can do stuff wrong. What Jesus was saying is there's no right and wrong. We're all in the same boat. It is not moral, it's a civil law, and I have come to tell you it's a lie. Because you see, the whole premise is that you're bad. You can't rule over yourself. And you need to have somebody, a government, to rule over you. And if you don't do it correctly, we've got to have some sort of appeasement. The gods have got to be appeased. You've got to make amends or penance. You've got to pay some price. And if it's really bad, then you got to pay with your life. But Jesus said, no, don't kill that woman. She has not broken some law that she deserves now to die. So he freed us, not just from religion, but from government, from the law, from every concept that can deceive and destroy us. And it's not just Judaism, although that's a very good illustration for us in the West, because we think that civilization, Christianity, which morphed into some kind of present-day capitalism, basically. It's based on principles and Judeo-Christian values. So in their mind, they think that we're all in this system that's based on Judaism, which is the law, and somehow, I guess, Christ as well, because he said you could be forgiven, and we're all going to get saved as long as we do the best we can, and we get baptized. But what about the East? Well, it was kind of like that with Confucius. When Confucius came to the world, there was already religion, Brahmanism. But he wanted to control the people. So he used religion to try and instill into people this law. That's why if you go to the East, they bow. You got to have honor for the king. You got to respect the ruler. You've got to respect the minister. And if you didn't, you were punished. Why? Is this somehow moral? No. But society as it is, government, cannot survive without this obedience. So the Jews said, you've got to obey. Even if that woman, is a nice lady and everybody thinks that she doesn't deserve to die, but we've got to kill her, the Pharisees say. You can't give her mercy. This is, if the whole foundation of our government will crumble if we say that we can just forgive people. They can't do that. So Jesus says, you know what? Good. Because the entire foundation of your house is bad, and it needs to fall. It needs to be gone. I'm going to get rid of it. And he went into the temple, and he overturned the table of the money changers, because, this is how they were getting along. They were buying and selling and believing in all of this stuff. And he said to the Pharisees, the religious leaders, they were hypocrites. And so he ended that system. And you could liken it to Judaism or Confucianism or any other kind of ism. He ended it. It's over. You're probably saying, well, okay, that sounds good. But what are we going to do now? Just walk away from our lives? And is that what Jesus was talking about? Was Jesus talking about some religious thing? We got to go get baptized and we'll get saved? Or was he really talking about something even more amazing? The core of your being, who you are. Not just, yay, I'm a God. I'm going to stand in a circle holding hands and saying, I'm God, I'm God, I'm God. And that's going to be it. Right? Just to know that I'm amazing. Even if I can't ever do a miracle or I don't see any progress in the world. It's just that this is what I believe now, and it makes me happy. And I have a little carnation in my lapel, and I'm wearing a flowing white gown, and I'm dancing in the field and singing on my harp, and therefore everything's wonderful. But here's the thing. I still go back from 9 to 5 and work for the man. And I'm still scared out of my mind. I'm going to lose my house. And that's basically just the same thing. You're under law. In your mind, you're deceived. And all of society is deceived. We're working for these material possessions. We're slaves. We're working for that God who is a deceiver. And so what I'm hoping to get finally to before this video ends, I want to get to a place that is so deep, that you grasp it so amazingly, that it will literally change your life. Because at this point, you're thinking, okay, I get that. We shouldn't have too many material possessions. We should be happy, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But what can I do? Because no matter what I do, I'm going to give you an example. Let's say that you decide one day that you're going to go ahead and get rid of your house and your car, and you're going to keep a few changes of clothes, a sleeping bag. You and your dog are going to take off, and you're free. See, all right, isn't that good enough? I mean, boy, you've given up everything. As Jesus says, whoever leaves houses and mothers and brothers and sisters and fields and property for my sake shall gain tenfold in this world and 100-fold in the world to come. So isn't that what he wanted us to do? Come and follow me. Well, yeah, I think that's it. But here's one last little nuance to the whole thing. This is what I want to get to. So you're walking down the road with your knapsack, and still there's something stirring inside of you. You think, well, I should be free now. I've left everything physically. But yet I still have this nagging, worrying feeling. It's like, where am I going to get my next meal? I'm still scared. I'm hoping that I have this source of income that will help me along, or maybe I'll find a place where nobody will tell me to leave and I can camp, or I don't know, because this world is so bad they might come along and throw me out. I'm still worried. What about my children? Right? I got children, I got parents, I got family. What about them? I'm worried about them. This thing is, it's just like when you're driving your car and it breaks down and you don't have the money to fix it. How do you overcome that? What do? Just pretend it didn't happen? You're scared. That's the part that it's beyond just a philosophy. We need to know the facts about what is really going on. Is there really a way that we can be free? Well, Jesus said you can do miracles. And I think there's where the key lies. What is it that Jesus was offering us that we haven't found, or that we can't quite get, the little nuance of what he's trying to say? Well, here it is, friends. There's lots of scriptures in the Bible that talk about leaving everything and following Christ. But it's not about following Jesus, some guy with a robe. It's not necessarily about not having a home. I mean, I think human beings were meant to build homes and live in them. But we're not meant to be in debt and building ever and ever more luxurious homes and being prisoner to our lives. So how is it we're going to find this one little life, especially in a society where we're bombarded on all sides? We got children and family and everything. How are we going to make the break? What are we going to do? What is the nuance here? Jesus came up on the disciples and they were fishing. Did Jesus say, hey, stop fishing? Right? You can't do anything. You can't fish. That's a job. You can't be working. What are you working over there for? Remember, the disciples and Jesus were working in the field, but they weren't working for somebody else. They were working to eat. That's it. They were fishing to get some food. So it's perfectly okay to work, to produce what you need for the moment, but not to worry about tomorrow, but just for today. Because Jesus says the worries of each day are sufficient for that day. You don't need the worries of tomorrow. Just the worries of this day. So it's not wrong to worry necessarily. It's part of life. You go down to the river and you say, well, I better not get onto that rock because it doesn't look stable. Is that worry? Maybe. You're a little concerned about that rock, so you don't step on it. And you think, well, I'm hungry, so I need to think about where I'm going to get some food. All right, you need to do that. But you don't need to be thinking about, wait a minute now, I've got to make so much money, put it all in the bank. What are the interest rates going to be? What's it going to be like in the economy 20, 30 years from now? And, what is my retirement going to look like? None of that. We don't need to be worried about tomorrow. So that's part of what Jesus was saying. And so the disciples were fishing, and they were fishing. See, they were doing something. They were working. But they were working on the wrong side of the boat. Jesus came along because they weren't catching any fish. Well, now, this is a parable, friends. They might have caught lots of fish. But what they were trying to catch, what you and I are trying to catch, is the spiritual food, the truth, the life that's going to be the real life. So they were fishing on the wrong side of the boat. Now, what does that mean? Remember, we've talked about this before. Your brain has two hemispheres, the left and the right side. And people describe this wrong, actually. People say that you've got one side of your mind that's analytical and, but that's not really what this is about. Yes, you have two different minds, but one is a conscious mind that's conscious of the physical world and does all the worrying, planning. And the other part of your mind is the superconscious. That mind can regulate your breathing. It knows how to process food in your body, keep your heart rate going. And it's also running 1,000,000 miles an hour behind your conscious thinking. It can analyze things and figure things out like a supercomputer. It knows everything, and it's what's projecting your thoughts. That's your spiritual self. You got your physical, carnal self and your spiritual self. So you have two different minds. That's the spirit and the flesh. So the boat there represents you. And when you fish on one side of the boat, you're using your carnal, conscious mind. When you fish on the other side of the boat, you're using your spiritual side, the Christ within you. They thought that every good thing came to them by thinking about it in their minds. See, the truth is, when we were created, like Jesus says, the fox have dens, the birds have nests. It's provided for them. They didn't have to worry about it. Jesus is saying, look, the Son of Man hath nowhere to lay his head. Now, what does that mean? That we should not have a place to lay our head? No, he's saying don't worry about it. Don't worry about what to put on, what to wear. The nations do this. All right, so is it wrong to fish? No, but you got to fish on the right side of the boat. And what that means is that you have the conscious mind that is worried about what we're going to do. We got to have a government. We got to have rules. We got to be worried about our futures, right? About the stock market going up or down, or interest rates. No. That is just all that stuff is going to bring us into an early grave, worrying and. So Jesus says, fish on the other side of the boat, and they caught 193 fish. Well, now, that's a Pythagorean equation that goes back 600 years before Christ, when Pythagoras invented this ratio of 193 over 200. And it had to do with two circles that when you bring them together, just as the circles meet, in the middle, there's a little sign of the fish. So it was the ratio of the fish. And the fish come in abundantly when we use our spiritual side. When we use the spiritual part of our minds that overlaps into this physical, and we just don't know what's in the rest of the circle. We don't think about it consciously. And so it is that spiritual superconsciousness within ourselves that the Bible calls faith. So we don't say to our wives, hey, we can't have a child until we have mapped out exactly where this kid's going to get food, how much money he's going to make, if he's going to have a career, what is his career going to be, at what age is he going to retire, is he living in an area where it's productive to life, should we even have this kid? No, they didn't do that. They never thought about it consciously. They didn't work it out that way. It wasn't down on paper. They just had faith. They knew that the world that they lived in would provide. They didn't worry about it. When you live in the real world, you simply walk down the road, and there on the ground, lying in front of you, is everything you need. The river provides you with water. The trees provide you with the fruit, and the fruit is the fruit of life. And you can take the sticks and pile them up, and you can make a little cabin, and you can live in the cabin, and you can get shelter, and by golly, you can have a fire with those pieces of wood, and you can stay warm. You can go fishing, you can eat the fish. Everything is provided for you. You don't have to worry. That's the kind of life that you need to have. Now, let's extend that into the world we live in now, because it's really the same thing. You've got to apply that, because you've got to understand that that's what Jesus was talking about. So you ask the question, yes, but I live in the world. Everybody around me's got a job and a car and everything like this. So how does that apply to me? Well, it does apply to you. Jesus said it did, because They came and they asked Jesus, should I pay taxes? They lived in the city-state. They lived under the power of Rome. And they were asking the same question. Okay, Caesar wants us to pay taxes. What do we do? So Jesus was telling you right there, whose inscription is on that coin? Well, it's Caesar's. Okay, give Caesar's things to Caesar, but you come follow me. So there Jesus answered your question. Did he say that you must get out of the world? Physically? No, the Apostle Paul says we can't get out of the world. We'd have to actually leave the physical world. But he says you're living in the world as though you're no part of it. So what it means is don't worry about it. Your Father in heaven will provide for you. That's why Jesus said, don't take a purse with you when you go, or 2 pairs of sandals, or extra clothes, because the worker is worthy of his hire, and your Father in heaven knows that you need these things. He'll provide for you. Seek ye his righteousness, not your righteousness, not Moses' righteousness, but seek ye his righteousness, and everything else will be added to you. Do the works of faith, not the works of law. James, the brother of the Lord, says we have the works of faith, which is charity and helping one another and loving one another. And everything you give, it shall be given back. We live by these principles. You don't worry about it. You don't use your conscious mind. You fish on the other side of the boat. That side of the boat is your conscious side. The left side of your brain is just worried about physical things and calculations, and it's all worry, and it's just physical consciousness. Just don't do that anymore. Just stop thinking about the future. Let's say that you think that there's something that has to happen, or else you can't be happy. Well, then, if you're thinking that, then you're actually saying that the divine being cannot provide for you. And so you're rejecting the divine being and his grace, and you're relying upon your own consciousness, your own efforts, your own works, the works of the flesh. And if you rely upon the works of the flesh, you can't make it. Because you are going to be out of your mind, scared and worried, and it's going to make you sick. So what you have to do is put that behind you. Only use the right side of your mind. Jesus said, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. See, don't think about consciously what your spiritual mind's already going to accomplish. The farmer plants the seed, and he goes away and goes to sleep, and he knows that that seed's going to grow by itself. His conscious mind's not going to make it grow any better. You've got to learn to stop worrying and thinking about this world and consciously trying to make everything work out. You've got to give all of your worries to the Lord and know that faith is the answer. According to your faith, may it be. You cannot even worry. So if there's something that you think in your life that's got to happen or else you're not going to make it, that's where your problem is. Don't worry about it. Because guess what? You can't consciously even imagine what you possibly might actually have to have. Yeah, maybe the Lord will give you that. Maybe that is what he's going to give you. Maybe that is the path he's going to take you. But there's no way you're going to get that by worrying about it anyway. So just leave it alone and trust the Lord. Perhaps he's going to give you that, or he's going to maybe give you a better way. But just trust him, and it'll all work out. So anyway, I think I've gone long enough today. I'm going to probably pursue this a little bit more in some other videos, friends. This is the issue that we need to get straight. We need to have faith, and we need to know who we are, and we need to be free. So I'm going to go ahead and go for now. Hope you guys have a really great day. We'll see you again tomorrow. Have a good one.